I'm wearing my Namaste in Bed shirt, which wasn't really a conscious choice for this video, but turns out to be perfect because I am going to be talking about reading and how you can read more, and what better place to read than in bed. Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm having one of those days where I need to be productive. I just have so much to do, but it's Friday afternoon, and after a really busy, crammed, packed week full of stuff, getting stuff done, I just feel like I can't get anything else done. So instead I'm gonna do something that feels productive even though it's totally unnecessary, which is make you guys a video. The question I probably get asked the most is, how do I find so much time to read, or how do I read so much? And last year I think I read like 60 or 70 books, which was pretty high even for me, but I'm definitely on track to get to that number again this year. And so I just wanted to make a video to show you guys my easy tips for how you can read more. So my number one tip for how to read more is to read a lot of different books at once. Now, I just slowly became a convert of this practice recently in the past couple years, and let me tell you, I read so many more books now that I do things this way. I used to be really OCD about it and like only read one book at a time and not let myself read another book until I finished the book I was reading. And it still takes a constant reminder to myself that like it's okay to read more than one book at a time. You don't need to be finished with a book to start a new book. But let me tell you guys, it's so much better that way. And just to give you a sense for this, I'm going to show you all the books that I am currently reading right now. Okay, you guys, that is 12 books. They just fell on me. But it's so many books. It's so many books at once. I totally get it. And if you're kind of anxious about going from reading one book at a time to reading a lot of books at the same time, maybe you don't need to go to 12 books right away, but here's why you should read a lot of books at once. This book is like a spiritual book broken down into really short chapters. This book is like a businessy book, gets sponsored, so it's like for my entrepreneurial side. This is a science nonfiction book, really dense, hard to get through. This is a nonfiction, kind of history, kind of memoir book about nature. This is a nonfiction book about food. This is a nonfiction book about history and politics and presidents. This is a very short book of poetry. This is the collected short stories of Flannery O'Connor, fiction. This is like a book that's just, you know, like a line a day kind of situation. Like this is spend a moment every day thinking of someone to thank. So you just read like a page a day. This is a book that I legit started. It's a book about yoga. It's a book I legitimately started like more than a year ago, and I've only gotten this far because it's really boring. This is a book for school. And this is my textbook for school. So I am, yes, reading 12 books all at once, and if I'm going to be totally honest, I'm going to probably start reading another fiction book right now because I think none of these books were fiction, and I just really feel like I also need to balance out my life and read fiction at the same time. So anyways, my point is you should read a lot of different books at once, because if I was like, I'm not going to read any more books until I finish this textbook, then that would like never happen, and the whole semester would go by and I just wouldn't read anything else. If I was like, I'm gonna not even read anything until I read this book of poems because it's really short and I can get through it, well, guess what? Maybe tonight when I'm going to sleep, I don't feel like reading poetry, and so then I just don't read and I just like look at my phone. Well, if I didn't feel like reading poetry, then I could pick up the book that I'm already reading about history, or if I didn't feel like reading about history, I could pick up the book I'm reading about food. And especially if you like nonfiction like I do, a lot of these books are just broken down into these sections. You can read like a page and stop at a new subject heading or a new chapter, and a lot of them have like these little boxes and stuff, so you really can just read like, you know, a paragraph or a page or a chapter and then switch books, and it's not a big deal because it's nonfiction. And honestly, nonfiction is really better digested in these small bursts, in my opinion, and I also need a lot of time to like digest what I've read, so I don't like to read one book of fiction and then go straight to the next story. Like I need time to like process everything that's happened and think about it, and that's when I can turn to something like this book, Get Sponsored, which like I could read this right after reading a fiction book that was emotional because this has nothing to do with that. So I think that you should just, if you're like how I used to be and you like to just read one book at a time, you will do yourself a favor if you just get over that and read a bunch of different books at the same time that kind of covers all the genres that you like, maybe like one book in each genre or one book for every interest that you have or something like that, and you will get through so much more. All right, so that was my first tip. Don't read only one book at a time. Read a lot of different books at the same time. If you find trouble also like tracking that kind of thing, you can use Goodreads. I'm on Goodreads and I love it because it has like all the books I'm currently reading, all the books I've read, all the books I want to read. It's just like one easy place. My second tip is to write down all the books that you really want to read because it's important to you for some reason. So for example, I just picked one book to show you, for example, for me. So this is Autobiography of a Yogi. And I really want to read this book because I teach yoga, and this book has a really important history and was really influential to a lot of people who went on to be influential. So I really want to read it. Like, it's something that I want to have read. It's not that I want to read it because it's enjoyable, because let me tell you, I really do not like this book so far. I'm in about 80 pages and I just really don't like it. It's just had no effect on me. I can barely even remember like what I've even read so far. It's just not my style. I just don't like it, but it's important to me to have read it. So this is like, it's a category of its own. So I want you to make a list of the books that like it's important to you to have read. Maybe that's a classic, maybe it's something to do with your industry, maybe it's something to do with your interests, maybe it's like your parent really liked a book and they really want you to read it and it's important to them and it's important to you because it's important to them. All those books that are like, even if they're not your favorite, it's important to you to read them, put those on a list. You can constantly be reading one of those books. And I've been reading this book for I think over a year, even though I've only read 80 pages. But it's just constantly on my to read list. Like I'm gonna, go back to it every time I feel like I have some time and some patience. And, whenever I don't really feel like I want to read it in that moment, like I'm not even gonna try. Like I'm not gonna force myself to read it in a time when it's not a good time, like in terms of my mood or whatever. And this kind of book, yeah, it's like on my I want to read list, but it's not on my to read short list, right? This book is just a book I want to read, but if I got like 80 pages in and it wasn't very good, I would just stop reading it. These are two totally separate lists. I hope that's clear. It's like a to read list that's important and you're going to read it no matter what. And then there's like the to read list that is like, yeah, you want to read it, but if it actually turns out that the book sucks, like you're not going to waste any more time on it. If I had said that I needed to finish reading this book before reading any other book, I would have fallen so behind on my reading just in general and not read as many books at all because I would have had to like slog through this book. Instead, this is going to be my one kind of serious book that's going to take me a long time, and I'm okay with that. And then while I'm reading this book, I'm going to read like 50 other books that are fun or more interesting or faster reads. Always bring a book with you. The thing is, if you're reading a lot of books at once, you might not have the right book to suit your mood with you for every moment. But when you leave your house in the morning, you can just tuck your book into your car or purse or whatever you have, backpack, of what you think you might be in the mood to read that day. Even if you think you won't have time to read, maybe just bring it along in case you end up with some free time to read that you didn't expect. And even 5-10 minutes to read, those pages are going to start to add up really quickly. Never feel like you have to have like an hour to read this book you've been meaning to read. That's never going to happen. Like, just read it now. Just read whatever you're in the mood to read right now, and you'll read so much more. I guarantee it. So I'm actually going to go read. I hope this video was interesting and useful for you. If you have any tips about, reading more, let me know. You can leave some comments below. I will see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!